Georgia Southern took down Nebraska last night, 45-42. The dew was not even off the grass in Lincoln this morning before Scott Frost was relinquished of his duties as head coach at Nebraska. Or, to put it a different way, he got fired. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, duh, everyone knew he was going to get fired. Yeah, they did. Do you understand what firing him now meant? Today it is September 11th. In 3 weeks' time, his buyout was going to reduce. Scott Frost was so bad, and this program was so lost and off the rails, they decided to pay him an extra $7.5 million to save 3 weeks' time. I don't really know what to say, because I don't care how flush with cash you are. $7.5 million is a lot to everyone. Everyone. And normally, people who have accumulated that much wealth have done so because they know the value of a dollar. I say all that to say you got to be really bad to have 3 weeks of your presence be worth $7.5 million to get you out of the room. But that's where they were at Nebraska. I got to give a ton of credit to Clay Helton and his coaching staff. There was a buzz all week. I should have talked about it more. On Friday Night Lines, if you were watching, we threw that one onto the Ramen Noodle Express. We waited for it to get to 23. We actually got 23 and a half. Turns out we didn't need any of the points. But there was a buzz around Statesboro, Georgia, I'm telling you, all week. And there was good reason, because they knew they had a shot. We had seen Nebraska. They had seen Nebraska. Clay Helton, I don't know that some of you even knew he had the job there, former Southern Cal coach. But you saw him last night, didn't you? And you saw him winning. Didn't get many of those big wins at Southern Cal, but man, he got one last night. So good for Clay Helton, good for Georgia Southern. That's a really proud program over there. We don't get to talk about them a lot on the national scene, but it's a unique culture there in Statesboro, and it's 642 total yards. I had not actually looked at the box score until just now. Colin, how could you do that? Are you telling me Georgia Southern lost the turnover battle 2-0 and still won the game? Okay, anyway, Scott Frost is out. Here's I guess the least mean thing I can say now that this is decided. He was there 5 years. Well, Scott Frost had just entered his 5th year at Nebraska. At no point in that time could you ask me what the identity of Nebraska football was and me confidently have an answer for you. And that's the long and short of why he's no longer the head coach at Nebraska. I got nothing against him at all. I, like about 99% of the college football public, thought it was a good hire. He was doing good things at Central Florida. He was coming in to resurrect a program. And so 4-8, 5-7 first 2 years, 3-5, I guess if you thought maybe for some reason COVID disproportionately impacted their program, you could write that off. But 3-9 last year, and then they start this year the way they did. I mean, I remember looking at their schedule and thinking, okay, they're going to be favored by a couple of touchdowns against Northwestern. If they can win that one, they could be 3-0 playing Oklahoma. If they lose that one, 1-2 against Oklahoma. It never occurred to me that Scott Frost would be gone before they play Oklahoma. And Oklahoma does indeed come into Nebraska Saturday. That line is around 2 touchdowns in favor of Oklahoma. And who in the world knows what's going to happen with that now? I cannot get around firing a guy and paying him $7.5 million more than I would have owed him at the beginning of October. Not the end of the year. If you misunderstood me, not at the end of the year. They just had to wait to the end of the month. And they couldn't do it. Or they didn't want to do it. I guess they could have done it. Where are they going to go? Where's Nebraska going to go? Which direction should the Nebraska program go? I don't really care what the list of candidates is right now, because I know there are going to be ebbs and flows there. But I am telling you, it is imperative for them to find someone who can build the ship, not just someone who knows how to take the wheel once the ship is built. Because this is not a ready-made program. This is not a superpower in this sport right now. It was in a bygone era. They've got to rebuild it from the ground up. And you got to find a leader. You got to find a guy who knows how to do that and who has shown the ability to do it. And some of the early names floating around there, aside from sort of the pie-in-the-sky names, you're going to hear like Urban Meyer, Bob Stoops. Forget all that. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You're going to hear names like Lance Leipold, who just went and just smashed West Virginia as a 13-point dog yesterday, and that hurt us. You're going to hear Lance Leipold. He's at Kansas right now. I would absolutely look that way. You're going to hear Charles Huff, Marshall's head coach, just beat Notre Dame yesterday. Still very young as a head coach, at least. But you're going to hear that name. I think you'll hear Chris Kleiman's name, head coach at Kansas State. These are the kinds of places you need to look. I'd look all throughout the Sun Belt. Dude, who in the world didn't pull a big upset in the Sun Belt yesterday? The Sun Belt. Who pissed off the Sun Belt? Which one of you is responsible? Some of you tried to blame me. If it's said on this show and it's wrong, I've told you guys before, it's the model. If we're right, it's me. If it's wrong, it's the computer. So it's not on me. But look, my point in all seriousness is don't go find the biggest, flashiest name. Go find the guy who's right for the job. And go find a guy who knows how to build it and who has shown you he can build it. Don't get fooled by someone sitting there in the interview process telling you he can do it. He ought to have the resume. He ought to have the proof of production. We have to do that all the time in our business. If we're pitching to advertisers, we don't tell them the kind of show we do. We clip different portions of our show, and we did it with Academy. We gave them a proof of production reel. And therefore, they don't have to take our word for it. When you're spending and when you're investing like they are, and when you're investing like Nebraska is every time they hire a head coach, there should be no guesswork. The guesswork should be minimal. Okay, the guesswork should be, where's he going to live? Does he like the color red? It shouldn't be, can he build and maintain an organization? That's not the kind of question you should ever be asking. We had to ask it through the entire tenure of Scott Frost. Hopefully they can get that figured out. Because I can tell you the next question everyone's going to have, and the reason people doubt Nebraska's possible relevance in college football is because they think the sport has passed them by. I'm not sitting here suggesting to you that one or two little tweaks and Nebraska is right there in perennial playoff contention in this sport. I'm not saying that. But I am saying there is nothing that you're accomplishing at Iowa or Iowa State or Wisconsin or Minnesota that you can't accomplish at Nebraska. Nothing. Those places have made better decisions than Nebraska has made. And that's why over this span of ineptitude at Nebraska, those other programs have had varying degrees and varying runs of success. You can do it just like them. Some could argue you could do it better than them. You hadn't done it as good as them, but it's not because you're incapable of it. It's just because you hadn't made the right decisions. It's really that simple, guys. So I pull for Nebraska because I don't know how in the world, unless they're a rival of yours, I don't know how you pull against Nebraska. But Scott Frost is out. Be really interested. Some of the odds are already out for the next head coach of Nebraska. And I think look, somebody was calling for Dave Aranda. He ain't coming there from Baylor. Urban Meyer, we were sitting next to Urban on the set of Fox's pregame show yesterday. He looked pretty comfortable there, and I think there are only a couple of places he'd leave that set for. I think he was at one of them yesterday, and that was not coming open anytime soon. Chris Peterson, unless you know something I don't know, I wouldn't expect Chris Peterson to pop up in Lincoln. Matt Rule, whatever. My point is, you've been given my marching orders. They are sound. Trust me, they will work. So Trev Alberts, the balls are in your court now. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me, that's how we keep this entire thing free.